Hey there, I'm Mr. Terry. I'm a high school history teacher. Welcome back to another History Teacher Reacts video. All right, I'm trying to get back to more consistent uploads as I've been sick lately. And I thought a great way to get back on track was to cover my good friend, Fat Electrician's new video. Because I need to learn about this because I don't know what he's talking about. It's called America's Most Iconic Delivery System, Grumman LLV. The original video is going to be linked down below. Make sure you're supporting him because he supports what I do. Let's get started. All right, I saw a mail truck. So is this going to be about Newman?
Every
Seinfeld
single time I try to make a funny, lighthearted video, it gets completely unhinged.
Okay.
Today we're talking about Northrop Grumman's most iconic vehicle of all time.
Powerful military industrialist company.
Just sat forward in their chair because if I don't pick their favorite Northrop Grumman plane, they're going to roast me in the comments section. Because if you don't know, Northrop Grumman is a defense contractor primarily known for making warplanes.
They make so much money.
Some of the most iconic and effective warplanes the world has ever seen.
By the way, do you know when Eisenhower, this big thing after World War II is he says we need to fear what's called the military industrial complex. Do you think this is what he was talking about? These companies like this, where we build such profitability and invest so much of our economy on war that it's going to keep us in a persistent state of war? Is like a company like Northrop Grumman, Grumman. Gosh, I always get tongue tied with that. Is this what he was warning against?
Some of those planes include the F-4F Wildcat, the F-6F Hellcat, America's gun with wings, A-10 Warthog, the B-21 Stealth Bomber, and its replacement, the B-21 Raider. But all of these pale in
Dude, those stealth planes look like
Grumman's most iconic and
alien ships to me.
all time. A vehicle that was designed to perform its tasks swiftly, despite snow or rain or heat or gloom of night. The LLV, the long life vehicle, aka the mail truck.
Oh, they made that?
You're not serious.
Northrop Grumman made the iconic mail truck that Newman drives?
You've got to be shitting me. Make one of those.
Yeah, the same people that made like half the planes in U.S. military history
I had no
also
idea.
Made your friendly neighborhood mail truck. I can only...
Hey, money is money, right? How many millions of those have been out there? Way more than there are planes. That was smart.
Imagine
and amazing that it was like them, a military contractor, not like Ford or so, you know what I mean? Like somebody dropped the ball on the mail delivery like chunk of the
U.S. Postal Service put out a memo like, hey, we're looking for a vehicle to help deliver
infrastructure.
Packages, and the U.S. government was like, oh, package, payload, potato, same thing. Call up Northrop Grumman. They're really good at delivering that type of stuff. Okay, Northrop Grumman's used to putting warheads on foreheads. Now they're putting parcels on porches. It's the same thing. Now all I need is for Lockheed Martin to start making action figures and my life will be complete.
You put munitions, chips, and toys?
All small soldiers.
Okay, all jokes aside, I'm
evil.
actually legitimately upset that this thing is named the LLV.
That movie was kind of dark,
Northrop
actually.
Grumman, the makers of the F-4F Wildcat and the F-6F Hellcat, and you didn't name this the Mail Cat? Are you fucking kidding me?
Did you forget to do the ad?
No,
is that Mrs. Electrician?
Thanks for finally being in a YouTube video with a shirt on for once. Nice thong, Borat. This video is brought to you by Zydax, custom gaming PC.
You just said that. Was that his wife? He's sleeping on the couch tonight.
They're all made right here in America with American tech support. They can do any type of customization you want, or they have
I think I'm ready to upgrade.
Ship right now. And then
need some more
sponsors, Zaka Life Recovery
better
Bond.
processing
Right
for like video
It's
uploads
the best
and
thing
stuff.
I've found for aches, pains, and athletic injuries. It blows every other topical treatment I've ever tried in water. I'm gonna have both those sponsors and discount codes linked down below. Let's get back to the video. So after finding out that the mail truck that I've grown up with my entire life was actually made by Northrop Grumman, I decided, hey, I'm gonna make a video on this. This is gonna be hilarious. It's gonna be lighthearted. He
has so many good video ideas coming up, by the way, that he shared on the holiday show.
How this came to be, and then I asked myself one simple question. Wait a minute. Why on earth is a defense contractor making this little tiny car when an automotive contractor probably could have done the same thing better and probably cheaper? And
I feel like it always comes down to some crafty businessman that's good at selling contracts like that. There's always something like that. Maybe because they already worked with the government and the military. Because of that, he probably already had an in, you know what I mean? Come on, there's got to be something sleazy going on, right?
Per usual, to absolutely nobody's surprise, it's because once again, the government ruins everything.
Yes, we do.
All right, so let's take it from the top. Once upon a time,
Government really is bad at
1775, the United
contracting.
States Continental Congress says, hey,
We overpay.
delivering mail is super
Government overpays
important
for
because we
everything.
don't have email and phones and telegraphs yet, and delivering letters is the only way that we can communicate. So we need to establish a post office, and we're going to
Now it
take
just
one of our
delivers junk
smartest
mail.
founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin, and make him the first postmaster general
That's right.
to figure this entire thing out.
You guys
Then the
know?
government
You guys know Benjamin Franklin invented mail. He literally invented mail and electricity. He was our best president.
much immediately decides, hey, we want this to kind of be a government agency, but also we don't want to have to give it any tax money to be able to run itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it a legal monopoly. We're going to go ahead and say that the U.S. Postal Service is the only entity that is legally allowed to deliver the mail. That way, the U.S. Postal Service is going to be guaranteed to get 100% of the business, so they're going to have enough money to be able to fund themselves and not have to rely on taxpayer
Except for
money.
packages.
And this is still going
Apparently
on to
that's
this day.
okay.
This is a legally recognized and regulated monopoly. What about FedEx and UPS? That's actually a good question out of you for once. So the monopoly only applies to like letters and mail and shit like that. Packages are technically different, and there's allowed to be commercial competition there. That's why UPS and FedEx primarily only deliver packages. Now I say usually because there is an exception that if you have something of vital importance that needs to be like overnighted to somewhere immediately, you are allowed to use FedEx or USPS to ship that if it's of vital importance. And I know what you're thinking. It seems like there's a pretty big gray area there. I mean, who sets the criteria as to whether or not something is important enough to violate the U.S. Postal Service's legal monopoly and be able to use FedEx or UPS to send a letter or an important document? Well, obviously, that would be the U.S. Postal Service.
A lot of them do that still, though. Like
federal law enforcement agency.
What's the yellow
postal
company?
Inspectors.
DHL.
I'm not shitting you. The mailmen have their own federal law enforcement agency. I had no idea.
Yeah. You can't make the FBI.
Now, typically,
and you can't make your police force.
Things like making sure that people aren't sending
mail
bombs
cop
or drugs through the mail, or investigating people that
be a
have had
mail
their mail
cop
stolen, which, if you didn't know, is actually a federal crime. And back in the day in 1775, when the post office and the postal inspectors were founded, Congress levied the death penalty for stealing mail. And while that's all fine and dandy, once in a while the postal inspectors get a wild hair in their ass and they decide that they are going to enforce their legalized monopoly. For example, back in 1993, a big company called Equifax was using a private courier to deliver all of their mail, not just their packages. And because of this, the U.S. Postal Inspectors launched an armed raid of their company headquarters, determined that their mail wasn't important enough to be overnighted, and that they were legally required to use the United States Postal Service, and they gave them a $30,000 fine.
Oh my God.
If you live in America and you run a business and you decide that you don't like using the United States Postal Service and you're going to exclusively try to use like FedEx or UPS or something, there is a greater than 0% chance that armed mailmen in body armor will show up to your headquarters and
Tactical
raid your
Newman
business,
is showing
tell
up.
you that's illegal, and then give you a fine. Okay, do I want to talk shit right now? Because that seems absolutely insane.
Sorry, I feel like I'm able to add any history commentary, but this is hilarious.
Not, because they know where I live, okay? I didn't know they existed until yesterday, and already
Oh my God. Wait. Hold on. That bottle exists in the bottom right. A Quack Bang sippy cup. Oh my God.
Where I live,
dude, his merch game
I
is
didn't know they existed until
like
yesterday, and
man.
already Special Forces Mailman is on the top of my list of people I'm not going to fuck with.
Look at that guy. Okay, look at this dude. Okay, look at this guy.
Special Forces
Not that guy. This guy. You know, this guy was once in a different law enforcement agency, and he snapped and did something horrible, and now he's got to be like the U.S. Postal Inspector. This guy ruined a raid, or he was like ex-SWAT or military, committed a war crime or something, and then he got demoted down to U.S. Postal Inspector. This guy didn't go straight to Postal Inspector. This was not his life goal, was to go there.
The top of my list of people I'm not going to fuck with. So everybody kind of already knows that being a mail carrier is a government job, but most people don't understand to the extent that the U.S. Postal Service is its own government entity, so much so that it necessitates
because it's becoming less
federal law enforcement agency.
important now.
So going back to the
email
Grumman
and most of
the
his
actual
packages,
physical transportation of the mail,
everyone gets their mail digitally.
Back in the 1700s, when they were founded, it was delivered on horseback. When cars came out and they became more and more common, the post office began using more and more cars.
I am kind of sad that like the Pony Express is such a cool part of like American history, And where I live out in the West, there's like old Pony Express stops and stuff. And it's cool to like, and like rest houses. And it's so cool to like see them and just see that part of like Wild West history, that, you know, the Pony Express. There's some charm in that unfortunately is gone. There's no charm in mail delivery now. Now I just feel bad for Amazon workers
would just acquire whatever cars they needed whenever they needed them, and this went on for decades. But by the 1930s and 1940s,
dude, look how cool the mail was.
Because the USPS acquired a ton of different cars. They were all different makes, all different models.
Those are so cool.
They all drove different. They all had different carrying capabilities. They all required different.
Still about money though.
Different parts. It was a huge logistical nightmare for this enormous fleet of vehicles.
Mass produce one model.
Imagine, it would be like 100 times easier if all of the vehicles in the U.S. Postal Fleet were the same exact thing and all had the same capability, requiring the same replacement parts, the same type of mechanics, and you could teach all the postal carriers how to drive
Henry Ford production level,
you know. Only. So at the end of World War II, with hundreds of thousands of Americans returning home and looking for jobs, the United States Postal Service recognized a very unique opportunity with the Willys Motor Company Jeep. Because the Jeep was being used by the U.S. military, there was already a ton being manufactured, and a lot of the people returning home from the military already knew how to drive it. There was a ton of people qualified to work on them mechanically, and there was a ton of excess parts around. And with the military downsizing, there was a huge
drivers and manufacturers ready from the war.
Perfect fit in pretty much every way. It is a rare case of the government doing something 100% right, and the United States Postal Service adopted the Jeep as their primary vehicle.
Okay.
And that worked for like 40 years, but as the U.S. got bigger and bigger,
I don't see those anymore.
And more people, and people started sending more and more mail.
I don't ever remember seeing one of those.
The capacity that the Jeep could hold simply wasn't enough, and the United States Postal Service wanted something that was capable of carrying more mail. But
I mean, Jeep's gonna be great if you got to go like off-road mail delivery. Jeep's still the top dog in off-roading, so it would have been better then. But now we don't need that.
You have to remember, this is a government agency and they can't do anything simple when it comes to getting new equipment. So they can't just go over to like Ford or Chevy and be like, hey, build me a new mail truck. No, they have to figure out the exact specifications that they're looking for, and then they have to send it out to all the government contractors so that they can all put a bid in on it. That way the government contractors can come in, do
who greased the bidding though? Come on, somebody did.
A ton of money. I mean, let's just look at the LLV, for example. They wanted this thing to weigh a maximum of 3,000 pounds. Guess how much it weighs? Exactly 3,000 pounds. They wanted it to be able to carry a minimum of 1,000 pounds. Guess how much it can carry? Exactly 1,000 pounds on the dot. They wanted it to be this tall, this wide,
manufacturing
this long.
idea.
Grumman came along and said, dope, I'm gonna make a metal fucking rectangle exactly that size, throw an engine and some wheels on it, and call it a good day. They literally made a mobile filing cabinet, which, to be fair, in hindsight, after serving in the military, I should have been able to recognize that the mail truck that I grew up with was absolutely a military-grade piece of equipment built by the cheapest bidder. I mean, this is what I drove in the military, the Humvee ambulance, and I mean, the similarities are there.
Yeah,
I mean, they both look like
take them both into war.
Were drawn by a third grader that didn't know how to draw a car yet, and then the 3D renderings were made out of fucking Legos. Now, to be fair, though, while I have driven
it does look like a Lego car.
It's a miserable experience, I've never driven a mail truck, so I don't actually know what that's like. So I turned to the internet because surely some mailman has written something somewhere on the planet that is going to tell me
I know
what
a couple
that
mailmen. I should ask them.
And here's what I found.
That are also car guys.
Regular driving around town was pretty bearable, but driving the LLV on the highway shouldn't even be legal.
It's not meant to
I've
be.
had to do it a few times, and those times were probably the most terrified I've been.
It probably is like bad balance.
Like riding a motorcycle over 100 miles an hour, no problem. Merging onto the highway in a mail truck, you couldn't pay me to do it again.
Seems like that's just something you don't do. Like, I mean, like for most mail routes, aren't they just, you know, like especially suburban and urban, so you don't really, you don't need that.
The sluggish acceleration, deafening noise, and harsh vibration were all bad enough. But knowing the body of the vehicle would crush like a soda can in an accident,
they do look very unsafe.
A frightening experience. Nope, I was
right.
You're going
like 5 miles an hour.
What it's like to drive a military ambulance. I got one of those things going 75 one time thanks to an enormous hill, and it felt like I was re-entering the Earth's atmosphere as everything that wasn't strapped down rattled out of place and started falling to the floorboard. Now I don't know.
You're going in re-entry
but driving
from
a Humvee or an LLV really fast
seems
like anal beads. You know, the faster you go, the bumpier it gets, and if you go too fast, there's gonna be shit everywhere.
What did he just say?
Family
Brian,
guy.
this does not seem appropriate to watch in front of the baby.
Now, to be fair to the Grumman mail cat, is it a turd? Absolutely, but it is really really tough. Because here's some of the testing criteria the LLV had to be able to meet before it would be adopted as the USPS.
Wonder how long their engines can go for.
We have drive 5,760 miles at 55 miles an hour with 0 malfunctions and 0 broken parts. Drive 11,520 miles at 45 miles an hour on gravel with 0 malfunctions.
I would hope any car could do that, though.
Drive 2,880 miles, stopping every 250
See, that's the
feet,
difference.
accelerating to at least 15 miles an hour in between stops with 0 malfunctions and 0 broken parts. Drive 960 miles on cobblestone, 0 broken parts. Drive 960 miles
Ruin a suspension,
over potholes, ensuring that every single wheel hits the pothole at least 35,000 times with 0 broken parts. To accomplish that, they took a Chevy S10 chassis, shortened the wheelbase so it could have a tighter turn radius, and then made the entire body of the vehicle out of aluminum so it couldn't rust. So at a minimum, at least it's tough. Despite the fact that it is really tough, it is finally time to start replacing the United States
What's
Postal
the
Service
gas mileage on one of these?
The engine that they put in these things is an engine from the 1970s known as the Iron Duke, and this bad boy's getting like 9 miles to the gallon.
Oh, really?
This is the same engine they were putting in the Cavalier and the Trailer Park Ferrari back in the day. I mean, the Pontiac Fiero. Don't laugh, the Pontiac Fiero was high-class white
Dude, that
trash,
was sick back in the 80s, man.
When I was growing up was the 2002 Dale Earnhardt Edition Monte Carlo. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. The main problem with the LLV is the gas mileage, okay? Because it only gets 9 miles to the gallon, you have to realize this is like the biggest fleet of vehicles that the United States has. There's over 140,000 of these things.
That's way worse than I thought it'd be. But I mean, it's designed to carry like a payload of 1,000, right? On a pretty small, I wonder what like the horsepower, cubic inches and stuff.
Single penny that gas prices go up, the U.S. Postal Service has to spend an additional $8 million on fuel alone.
Right.
And this is the part where you're like, oh, America's capitalist. That's fine. That's the cost of doing business. Just raise the prices of your services. And
it seems like this is now the real reason why you're seeing like all new housing developments have the community mailboxes now. You know, they say it's like it's safer, it gets locked up and stuff, but really now the delivery van just makes one stop, dumps it all off. It's actually to save money. Maybe it's a win.
Covered. It's no big deal. You would think that, but remember, the U.S. Postal Service is a government-regulated monopoly, meaning that anytime they want to change their pricing, the government has to sign off on it, and the government takes forever to do anything. Another example of this would be like the power company, right? Because you can't shop around for different power providers the same way you look for like an internet service provider or a cell phone provider. You only have one power company available where you live, the same way you only have one post office.
That's how infrastructure works.
Anytime the power company wants to raise their rates, the government has to sign off on.
That's why it's also hard when you talk about like in a capitalistic society historically, how it's hard to put an open market on infrastructure because you only use one form of it. You know what I mean? I think if you had all these competing roads and you needed like a membership, it was like Netflix, Hulu and stuff, but for roads or for water companies, it would be impossible to logistically even create that sort of thing. So is that where we draw the line where things need to be state run or something, and which stuff should and shouldn't be prioritized, like infrastructure?
And it's a huge deal. Same thing applies to the Postal Service and stamps or anything else. Because of this, they can't effectively adapt and change their prices, so it's a humongous issue. So how do we solve this? Well, there's two options. You could A, get rid of the monopoly that's set in place because it's no longer effective for what it was originally
Mail doesn't seem like it
by
has to
helping
be a
the
monopoly,
USPS,
though,
and now
right?
it's actually hindering them more than it's helping because they're no longer able to change their prices to actually be competitive. Or you could B, make them get different vehicles. And obviously, we're absolutely 100% of the time going to go with B because the U.S. government or any government really is never ever going to give up control, and they have control over the USPS, and they're never ever going to let that go. They would rather see that thing burn to the ground than give up control over it. So obviously, the USPS is getting new vehicles. But
it almost seems like what's gonna change first, though, like the postal system evaporating completely because we're all doing all digital mail and package delivery now, or will they actually change all the fleet of vehicles to be more cost effective? Which one is more likely, you think, to take place?
But then that bites the US Postal Service in the ass because remember, they're a government agency and they can't just like go to Toyota and be like, hey, Toyota, that new truck that you guys just came out with that's $10,000 and really cool. Can we buy a bunch of those for fleet vehicles? No, they can't do that. They have to figure out the specs they want. Then they have to send that out and let all these defense contractors bid on them. And then after they bid, they have to give the defense contractors millions of dollars so that they can develop the new vehicle. So they're going to pay for all the R&D up front. And then when Oshkosh Defense wins the bid with this fucking thing that looks like it was animated by Pixar, the other company that they beat is going to turn around and file a lawsuit and sue because they're saying that it wasn't a fair enough competition, despite the fact that the US taxpayers literally gave them all the money for R&D in the first place. And then that's going to delay the whole project more. And then bottom line, it's going to take 20 fucking years to fix the issue. The entire time the US Postal Service is struggling and trying to figure shit out.
It's already struggling.
Refuses to let them actually do their
It's already an outdated business model.
And it just sucks because the US Postal Service is sacred. There's nothing more sacred to society than the mailman. All I wanted to do was have a happy, lighthearted video because I thought it was funny that Northrop Grumman was making mail trucks, and now
it turned into a rant.
I'm going to get upset every time I watch my mail lady deliver the mail because I'm going to recognize that she's wearing a parka and overalls inside of her vehicle because the heater barely works, because she's driving a 40-year-old mail truck that's a piece of shit, because the government fucks up everything they even get near touching. So in conclusion, I guess that's the story of why mail trucks are made by defense contractors. And if you're a mail carrier, I've always appreciated you, but I'm gonna be honest, I have another level of appreciation for what you do, because I truly, genuinely had no idea the levels of bureaucratic bullshit that you had to hurdle on your way to get mail into my mailbox. So thank you.
Salutes.
Seriously, thank you.
For the mailman.
Support the channel
Down in chat.
Merch over the fatelectrician.com. Whack bang out.
Awesome. Final thoughts. Yeah, I had no idea that military contractors that make fighter planes and stuff are made our vehicles. I guess it is time for an overhaul, right? We got to get with the times because the mail industry in general is changing. The United States postal system needs to be on that too. And it's like the government stuff is never on the cutting edge of new development. It's always the last, so the last behind. We got to get some more accountability in there, I guess, or something. All right. Anyways, great video. Very off topic. It seemed like for general Fat Electrician stuff, but it's fun to have fun sometimes. All right. Great stuff. We'll see y'all next time.